Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, depending on which side of the world you're joining us. Today, what we're going to do is look at some of the new features of ActiveReports 11, which we've released recently in the last couple of weeks. And we're going to go through a few of them and see them in action while going through others on a list of all the other all the other features that we've added. So we're going to be looking at a quick view of the agenda for today's session. We're going to look at the new features of ActiveReports 11, the developer edition, as well as then the new features on the server side, and then a couple of demos in each. So we're going to look at importing reports and using some of the new data source providers, as well as creating charts with multiple y-axes for the ActiveReports 11 demos. And we're going to look at the server side for customizing the look and feel and the ability to modify and create RDL and page reports and section reports directly from the server itself. Towards the end, we'll have a Q&A session. If there are any questions out there, I'm going to be happy to answer them. Now, during the time, if we do have questions, I would suggest to go ahead and put them in on the question panel. And where I have time or I see them, I usually do respond to them during the session as well as towards the end. So let's jump right in. New features in ActiveReports. Now, one of the things that we have targeted for ActiveReports 11 is performance. That's been one of our key target areas for ActiveReports 11. Now, with the performance, what we've done is we've re-engineered the execution engine for ActiveReports, making it faster, streamlined, more optimized. And that has given us almost a 2 times benefit in terms of performance of running reports across all of our viewers. It's also resulted in a faster output for exports. And we have also looked at optimizing PDF exports, which is one of the most commonly used export rendering extensions by ActiveReports users. And that has also benefited from the speed of the performance as well as the memory footprint with optimizations on the rendering extension itself. So all in all, performance, this version of ActiveReports is the fastest among the versions that we've had in the past, and it does show a big step forward on the performance side. From a data provider's perspective, we saw that a lot of customers were building custom data providers for CSV, JSON, and specific XML and web services. So what we ended up doing was we created data providers for them so that you can natively now just access JSON data, CSV data from files, JSON data and XML data from URLs and web services and web APIs and all. Or just embed those data directly into the report, whichever works for you guys. But that is natively now supported with ActiveReports 11. From an imports perspective, a lot of our customers move from various other reporting tools. A lot of customers also have reports and outputs throughout the departments, throughout the organization, which are stored in Excel formats, invoices, tabular customer lists, whatnot. So you want to be able to convert those into ActiveReports so that you can run them as part of your reporting platform. So that's where Excel imports come in, and we're going to see that in action, like I mentioned earlier with the agenda. The charting was always there. I mean, ActiveReports always had charting. It has a variety of charts available. The part where customers were asking more to add more complexity was when we're looking at more than one data point, and we need to look at it on different axes, because the prime reason being they have different scales and different plotting for each. So though you can, and we'll see how that differs when you're plotting two data points on the same axis versus using them as two separate axes, and how it makes it easier to correlate data and see relations from them. From a PDF rendering, back to our PDF rendering extension, we did add a few more presets and settings that you can leverage when you are creating your PDFs, and those get translated into print presets, which PDF now allows with the latest versions. So you can, while you're exporting, you can set up how many copies you want, whether you want it duplex or single-sided, or you want your output to be scaled to the page size or not. So there's a few presets that you can do, which Adobe now allows. So we added those in to the rendering engine, to the rendering extension. Along with that, a few other smaller enhancements around adding barcodes, micro QR barcode, as well as a few usability things that we'll also see in the demos. Now, for the server side, though, so the server, we also added some very big features on the server side, but first and foremost, the performance. So from the re-engineering of the reporting engine itself, we gained a lot of performance improvement even on the server, but we went one step further and relooked at optimizing the architecture of the way that the server works, and works with the agents, and streamlined that further to gain almost a 20 times benefit for first page load of reports. So that what that meant is, with large reports as well, or whether small reports, the first page is going to be available much faster when it comes to the server. And like the ActiveReports Developer Edition, we got almost a two times benefit when it comes to the overall load of the report in the preview screens. And obviously that also impacts, again, like I mentioned earlier, with the PDF and the exports and the scheduling side. The One of the very big features that we added right now till date, we had the ability to um, modify and design new reports for the semantic reports with the server, with the web-based report designer. With the ActiveReports 11 server, we're now able to design, modify, uh, and create new reports for RDL reports, page reports, and section reports using a ClickOnce end user designer, which reuses some of the components that the controls that we have in ActiveReports Professional. Um, and that gives us a full flexibility of tweaking existing reports, which are RDL page or section based, or creating or allowing the user to create their own. The beauty of this is that you can create your own ClickOnce end user designer and uh, replace this one, and that your customized version will then be integrated with the ActiveReports 11 server. So you can even customize the ClickOnce designer, essentially. The other big feature that we added around scheduling tasks and batch jobs was print management and or rather printer management and batch printing. So with the server, the administrator can now add a printer to the server and make it available to users, and they can then schedule tasks, print jobs to run on a batch mode on those on the printers that they have available on a weekly or daily or scheduled basis. And again, it ties into the scheduling that we already have on the server. So it just extends that and adds a new delivery mechanism, which is printing. So the third of the bigger features that we added was UI customization. Till date, what you had to do was you would be creating your own you would either create your own report portal, use the REST API and change the look and feel of the report portal, or tweak the CSS, which is all doable and works fine. But what we've done is we've added themes and UI customization right into the admin dashboard. So it makes it a whole lot easier. It makes the whole process more streamlined, and it is maintained across upgrades and releases. So we'll see how that works with replacing logos, replacing the look and feel to make it more, uh, make it feel like part of your application when you're redirecting or using the iframe to show the report portal as part of your application. Other things that we added, other smaller features, was interactive sorting on the report viewer. So when we see RDL reports, you're able to now sort tabular reports right there in the viewer without needing to go in and change the design in any way. So as a user, you don't need to modify the report. You can just sort the report right in there as long as interactive sorting is set. Um, Bulk user registration for those customers who are actually using the user management and not using security providers to extend the security. Right? So let's have a look at some of these sessions or some of these demos here. Let me move on to my other screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at ActiveReports first, and a couple of demos, walkthroughs for creating reports from Excel, importing an Excel sheet, how to define the layout in the Excel sheet so that it is imported correctly and as expected within ActiveReports, bind it to a JSON data source and change a few layouts and use a few expressions to kind of finalize a customer list. In the second demo, what we're going to do is we're going to look at creating a chart based off of a CSV file as a data source with multiple access. And we're going to use SAT scores versus teacher salaries to correlate those two data points across states. And with that, we're going to look at some of the presets available in PDF rendering extension settings just from the designer itself. Right, so without further ado, let's go into my dev machine. Okay, so let's um, let's start with the Excel file. So here we have the customer list.xls. I'm going to rename this. This is from the earlier session. Rename. Okay, so this is the Excel file that we were importing here. So it's essentially just a tabular list of customers, right? Has a title, contact name, company name, and address details. So what I've done here is I've there are named regions that are available within Excel that you can define. So what we've done here is for the whole table, I've defined that as a named region of AR table. And for the header, for the table header, I've defined it as AR table header, right? And similarly, this one row repeats because that's a detail, and I only have one row in the detail. I've defined that as AR table.detail. Now, if I had multiple tables and multiple sheets, I can work with those as well. Have to AR table 1, AR table 2, and so on and so forth. But the trick is to keep it together, define the table, define the header, define the detail, define the text box, define the image. So basically what we're doing is we're telling ActiveReports what to import and how to import it, right? So once we're done with that, all we really need to do is open the ActiveReports 11 import. So I have a shortcut down here, but it's available to you in your start program, ActiveReports 11 import, right? So the import wizard now, along with the Access and Crystal reports, it also has Excel now. So we hit next. We find the file that we want to import. It tells us what sheets are available. We say we want an RDL report, and we can import the formulae as well as text values rather than just the value of the output, and that'll help when you're writing the expressions and when you're converting those Excel formulae into expressions within ActiveReports, right? And we just hit next. What that does is it'll create a sheet1.rdlx, which is the name of the sheet, a report for each sheet, or if I'd chosen to merge all the sheets together into one report, it would have done that as well, right? So we'll open this. We'll use the standalone designer rather than the Visual Studio one because it's more streamlined. It's easier to use, and I don't have to create a new project in Visual Studio just to open a report. So we'll go ahead and open that sheet1.rdlx. This is the one that we just created, right? And you'll notice once this loads up, it essentially has a table header. So there's my header, and there's my detail. I don't have a footer because I didn't define one in Excel, right? And it ignored all the other lines or all the other rows of the Excel because they weren't defined as something for it to import, right? There was only one detail row. The other thing you'll notice is that it kept the sizes for the address, company, and stuff. So it imported formatting and size and fonts and everything from Excel as well, based on the settings there. So what we need to do is now we have a layout. Now we need to define where the data is going to come from. So let's do that. Let's go to data sources and say add a data source. And I'm going to use the JSON Data Provider here, and we're going to call this JSON customer list, right? And we can use an external file or a URL. I have a file here for the schema, the JSON schema, and then for the content, I'm also going to use a file. Now I could use a URL, so these could be URLs, it could be expressions, so they can be pretty dynamic there as well. So we press OK. We have our data source. Now we basically add a data set. Now to add a data set, we will basically just add the query, and we'll say, well, customers, we want all of the customers, right? So customers are in an array, and we'll have all of them, and that pretty much gives us all the fields, right? So now we're ready. So now I have the data. Now let's plug in the data in this table. So contact title, This is my contact name. This is my company name, right? This is my address. Now, for the city, what I want to do is I want to actually merge city, postcode, and country as one. So I'm going to go ahead and write an expression. So you'll notice here now with the right click, I have the ability to go directly into expressions from here rather than going into properties and going into values and then putting expression here. So rather than going here and then saying expressions, I have that available right here as a right click. That's one of the many user experience enhancements that we've done with ActiveReports 11. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create an expression with city, and we'll add a space, and we'll do postcode. We'll add a space, and then we'll do country, right? So basically concatenating the three columns together. Press OK there. Now that I've concatenated, I obviously need more space. So we'll delete these columns. We don't need these. And we'll expand this a bit. And we'll change the title. City, postcode, country. Right? And the phone number, we'll put in the phone number and the fax. There we go. Right? So that pretty much gives me my output. So I now have the tabular output for the Excel sheet that was originally as an Excel file. Right? Now this is a very simple, straightforward use case. Obviously, for invoices and all, you'll have more text boxes, images, headers, and footers, and all that sort of stuff. Those are also doable. For the sake of the session, I wanted to keep it simple and straightforward and show you the bulk of the process. Right? So we'll go ahead and save this. That's the first one done. Let's see, the second one is the chart. So let's go ahead and look at the chart data. So the chart data is over here, the SAT results, and we're going to just open these. Now this is just a CSV file, right? So it just has state, expenditure. There's nothing special here. State, expenditure, teacher ratio, teacher salary, percentage attendance, verbal score, math score, and the average SAT scores. Now I've cut down some of the states just randomly. Anything with less than 40% attendance for the students, I've cut those down to kind of reduce the number of bars that we're going to see, just for the sake of the demo, obviously. So we'll close this. Don't save. We don't need to do anything with the CSV file. And we'll go ahead and create a new report. Right? Again, we're going to use the standalone designer. Right? We're going to say new, and we're going to use a page report, or sorry, an RDL report. Right? Give me a second here. Okay, just checking if there were any questions. Okay, so here's my RDL report. Now the first thing that I need to do is get the data. Here we go. We'll do it quickly. CSV Data Provider, we'll call it SAT Scores CSV, right? And as soon as we hit this, now with the CSV provider, the difference here is that I don't need to create a separate data set. Everything is controlled within this one dialog. I just open up my CSV and it will load up the CSV as to what it thinks the columns will be, what the defaults are. If I change that and say, well, no, I don't have column headers, you'll notice my first row becomes the column names. but I do have them, so we'll move that up, right? And I can change delimited to fixed width, or quote identification or not, single quotes or double quotes, comma separation, semicolon separation, all the different variety, so to say, right? And to get the list of columns, we hit the button here to get it from the preview, which is basically these. So once we have the settings done, we get the columns, and then we can define the data types for the columns. So we can say that's going to be a float, expenditure is a float, teacher ratio also has decimal points, salary also has decimals, and my percentage is an integer, and my verbal score is an integer, my math score is an integer, and so is my average SAT score, right? And that pretty much is it. So it builds that connection string for us, and we press OK. So what you'll notice here is that it has the SAT data source as well as the data set. So now what we need to do is create a chart. So we'll go ahead and create the chart here, drag and drop the chart, and we'll choose a column chart. Right? Now, traditionally what you would do is you'd take the chart, come on, right? And we'll go ahead, we'll add the state here first as the x-axis, and then teacher salary, data 1, and then the second data point is my average SAT. So you'll notice my chart changes, right? Now, when I preview this chart with a single axis, what I see is my average SAT number is so high that it's hard to really compare between the trend of the teacher salary versus the trend of the average SAT. And this is where the different axis and different scales on the axis really helps. So let's go ahead and create that additional axis for us. So we have Y1, which is this one, the first Y-axis. We're going to call this the teacher salary, teacher sal, and we're going to call it teacher salary, right? And press OK. Oh, sorry. I could have added that one right there. Add another one. So it adds one over here to the right, or to the left rather. And we're going to call this AVGSAT. Well, we want it on the right hand side to make it a bit more clear. And we'll make it right up to the chart, and we'll call it a average SAT. Right? So that pretty much defines our axis. Now defining the data, changing the data so that we tell the chart which axis to use for the data. So teacher salary is going to use the sum of teacher salary. That works. Yeah, there's only one teacher salary, so that's okay per state, right? And it's going to be a plain column chart, right? So that's going to be a column. Average SAT. To differentiate that, we'll put that in the average SAT. So as soon as I do that, you'll notice that the average SAT axis now has a scale, and it's different to the teacher salary scale. The other thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the style to be a line chart. So what that further will do is differentiate, and it's easy to correlate the trends across two separate metrics. The other thing that I'm going to do is with the category, with the states, we're going to sort these based on the teacher salary. So what that'll do is it'll give one of the data points in a progression, in an ascending progression trend, and then we can see how that impacts the trend of the SAT score of the other metric. So we'll save that and we hit preview, and here we have the output. So we have um, the teacher salaries going up. So we see Connecticut has the highest salary in terms of hourly rates, and but they don't have as high of SAT scores as Alaska, for example. That could be just the numbers, or Oregon, or New Hampshire, or Washington State. So it's easier to now, with this type of correlation of the two trends, you can see how the two data points work together and are related, right? So right from this preview, what we can do is we'll go ahead and save this. So we'll save multiple axis 3. Now, once I have the chart, obviously this is not going to be the only chart on your report. You're going to have a lot more stuff, but just to show you the charting aspect, we're just going to leave it at that, and we're going to not do a lot of formatting and cleaning up, but we are going to go in and do the export side. So on the export, we see we have our PDF, and we'll go ahead and move the version of the export to the latest version of the PDF so that it has the preset settings, and then we can go ahead and change some of these settings. So number of copies, we'll do 3 copies by default. We'll do page scaling, no page scaling, and we just have 1 page, so print page range doesn't really make sense. So we'll just see these 3. So as soon as we hit OK, we get the report, the PDF file to store. Press save. It saves the file. We'll go ahead and close this, and we'll open that PDF file in the viewer, right, in the reader. So now over here, when we go in and print, we'll notice 3 copies, right? And it's going to do the actual size. And because this printer doesn't have duplex, the properties for duplex aren't really shown here, right? So this can help you with presetting output PDF, so they don't have to really think about whether they want to be duplex printing or non-duplex printing and all those sort of settings, right? Okay, so we do have a couple of questions. We'll address them towards the end of the session, right? I will just note these down. And if there are more, please go ahead and write them down here. Okay. So, from a ActiveReports server perspective, what we're going to see is customization of the look and feel of the portal, as well as the admin dashboard, as well as the logos, changing the logos, and kind of seeing how that works. And then we're going to look at designing reports using the ClickOnce designer. We're going to modify an existing report, in this case, enable interactive sorting for it, and then schedule it for a print job, for a batch print job on a weekly basis. Right? So let's get right into it. So we'll close this. Here's our admin dashboard. So I'm already logged in. So we'll come to this printers in the second demo, right? And we'll look at printers, the print management at that time. Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the UI settings page. So By default, this would be turned off, right? And if you do want to make changes to the UI, you would just turn that on, and you can make some common changes to the report portal theme and the admin portal theme to make the look and feel become part of your application, right? So, for example, you can get rid of the enable feedback, so you can hide that for your users. You can hide the help as well for your users, and you can choose to display the logo or not, right? So we'll keep the help and we'll change that to http colon slash slash. Oops, if I can spell right, we'll use the Grape City site as the target. Right? We're going to choose to display the logo, but we'll upload our own logo. Right? So we'll upload the Grape City logo here. Right? So that's the login page logo. The header page logo will do the same. Right? Now, as soon as I press save, one thing that you'll notice, we'll keep the mobile and the fave icon the same as it is. And as soon as I hit save, you'll notice, well, that logo just went away. It's purple because that's what the logo is, right? But it doesn't look right on the banner because the banner is dark as well. So that's the next step. Let's go ahead and change the report portal. We won't call it ActiveReports 11 server anymore. We will call it Grape City Report Portal, right? And we'll use a lighter theme, right? But we'll change the background color to be a bit more purple, light purple. So it ties in a bit um, with the look of, actually, yeah, with the look of the logo, right? And because we have a lighter background or a lighter background now, we need a darker color for the text, right? So we'll use that as well. We'll change that as well, and we'll copy this um, because we're going to use it. And then we can change the sidebar colors and all as well, but we'll not do that. We'll not go that far in. We'll call this Grape City Report Administrator. Again, start from the light theme, change this color, right, and change this color to darker black, right, and save. As soon as I hit that save, that color changes, and this highlight color can also be changed from over here, right? So that changes, and what we can do is we can go ahead and open our designer here, or report portal here. Did I not save the report portal? Did I not save this? I think I haven't saved this. Okay, so it's caching the values here. There we go. Right, so we'll log in and we see our banner is obviously different, right? So from a UI customization, I can go ahead and do that and change the logo, change the look and feel. Now, if I wanted to go ahead and completely change the behavior of the different functionality, I can do that also using the REST API, which has always been available since the last version. So there's no change on that front, right? So we'll go ahead and go to use case 4, where we're looking at modifying existing reports. But before we modify, let's go ahead and run this report and see what it looks like right now. So the report right now is essentially a customer order history. So it has the customer, detail in the top table, and it has an order history, a tabular output of the order history. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an interactive sorting to the ID here, right? And I can do that for the order date and the ship date as well. So if I wanted to order those or kind of sort those when I'm viewing also. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and close this. This is a report that I want to modify. I'll go ahead and hit the design button. So it's the same button as the web based report designer, but for semantic reports, it'll open the web one. For other report types, it'll open the ClickOnce designer, right? So we'll go ahead and maximize this. The way to add the interactive sort is really go to the property dialog for the column, go to interactive sort and just hit interactive sort. And the expression here is the field that we are sorting. So we'll do that on the ID. We'll do it for the order date. Right, the order date. And we'll do it for the ship date. So now with these three, the user can sort on any of these columns during preview itself. We'll go ahead and preview this just to make sure that it's all working. Now, with the ClickOnce, though we actually got the, we're designing the report on a local WinForms application that gets installed with ClickOnce technology, the report is still being run on the server. So when we're asking for the preview, it goes to the server to run the report and to get the data. And you'll notice the sorting buttons are available here, right? We'll go ahead and press save it, close this, go back here and hit preview again. So now I should have sorting buttons for my data. So once it loads up, it's going to load up again, obviously, because I've changed the report, I've changed the rendering. Okay, so I have the sorting buttons right here, so I can sort ascending or descending, right? There's ascending, right? And then descending here. And the same thing with ordered and shipped. Right? Okay. So now that we have this report, we can go ahead and schedule this for a print. So this may be, for example, a statement, a credit card statement or something that needs to be printed on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. So we'll go ahead and do the printing. But before we schedule the printing, let's go ahead and look at the printers on the admin dashboard. Now, the printers, just like schedules, they're just a list of all the printers available, and I can add another printer. For example, I have a Snagit printer, right? And I can make it available to everyone. Make it available through all the hosts, and these are essentially the agents that can run and print to this printer. So if you do have a printer which is available, Snagit, I'm not sure about the name of the printer. I guess that's where the problem is. But we'll do another Microsoft print to PDF, right? The same one, test connection, and that will work. Right? We won't add it because there will be two of them. Now, so if you do use the same printer across multiple agents, you can choose which agent has which printer. And depending on the printer output that you want to choose and you want to give available to your end users from a scheduling perspective, they will be able to choose the agent, or actually, in essence, run it on that specific agent. Right? So we'll just have that one. From a schedule perspective, it's the same. So we have the weekly schedule in which we are allowing them to choose what the delivery type is. If I specify the delivery type, and I can specify the specific printer as well for the task, right? But we'll let the user choose that, right? And we can say, well, with printing, it doesn't really matter, right? So we'll just use that. We'll leave it at that, weekly, and we'll go back to our portal, right? And we're going to create a schedule. Now, I've created this one earlier today. We're going to add a task that's scheduled to, and this we're going to use a weekly. We're going to do print. And as soon as I hit print, it gives me the list of printers. It gives me a few options for printing. So certain stuff like orientation depends on the report itself, so you can't really change that. But stuff like one-sided, two-sided, number of copies, what the paper size is supposed to be, whether you have a printer which supports specific paper source. So if you have pre-printed um, medium on a separate tray, you could choose that from here as well. Now, if you have other parameters that you want to define for a specific customer, you can set that up here, right? So we'll just hit save, and it just works like a regular schedule. So it'll run on a weekly basis. Rather than the delivery being an email, it's going to be a print, and the history will say that the schedule ran, but you can't really open the report because it was really printed. It wasn't really sent anywhere, right? Okay, so I guess that's end of case 4. So let's do a quick summary before we go ahead and open up for a few questions. Um, let me just check if there are any new questions. Okay, we're good. Um, so I do have a couple of questions here from the audience, which I will take up. Right, but before I get to that, to summarize, we've added a lot of new features on Active Reports with this version. Some of the biggest one really is the performance enhancement. We've done the devs have done a lot to re-engineer the reporting engine, as well as optimize the server architecture to really bring a much faster product for our customers. Now, together with that, the new data sets and new data sources available, we've added native support for them. We've added the ability to import from Excel. So what that does is allows you to migrate from more reporting platforms that you may be using, or to import Excel layouts directly into Active Reports and start using Active Reports for sharing your data. Right? So multiple access charting is again a more advanced visualization for complex charting needs and correlation of data points. And then the more specific barcodes, print presets, rendering extension enhancements for the PDF, and usability enhancements for the design environment. On the server side, again, apart from the performance, we do have 3 big features: the ClickOnce end user designer that you can now modify and create reports, RDL reports, page reports, and section reports, which are the more complex, more flexible reporting with a ClickOnce environment directly from the server. And also server-based printer management, as well as batch printing jobs, which you can schedule as a user. Then the third one being the UI customization for making your report portals and your admin portal look kind of embed and integrate better in terms of look and feel with your existing application without any changes for CSS or code changes. Right. Now, the other stuff that we added was the interactive sorting, the new render modes, and pageless viewing for the server for reports, and as well as user management with bulk user import. Right. So, one poll that I always like to ask towards the end of our session before I get to the questions is, what would you like us to um, talk about in future sessions? And this helps us to plan and share what what we would what we can do in future webinars. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll for us. Right, and wait for a few seconds here so that we can get some votes in. These are longer descriptions, so right, and they are multiple choice. So if there's a more options that you want to choose, okay. Okay, so we got a good set, but 50-50 results on detailed sessions on Visual Studio, Integrated Designer, and detailed sessions on the End User Designer. So essentially, more detail around how to design the complex RDL page reports and sorts. So we'll go ahead and schedule those in for future sessions. Right. Now, before we get to the questions, a last request here as next steps. So, after the end of this session, you'll get a 5-question post-session survey. I would really appreciate if you could take a couple of minutes and enter your feedback there. It's very important for us to improve these webinars and address customer needs, and we're always looking to hear from customers. If you are looking to try and download the latest version, you can go to the trials page, the downloads page, or the server page for the server and get those latest versions as well. Right? And from the audience, I recognize most of the names. I think the rest of the stuff is not new to you guys. You already probably follow us on Twitter for the latest news, and you already have this information for webcasts and contacting sales for licensing and stuff. Right? So let's go ahead and do questions. Okay, so do you have a